I'm on a crusade to prove just how strong the least played class, the Cleric, is in Baldur's Gate 3. I have created a full team of Clerics, respeccing all my characters into different subclass of Clerics, and have smashed through the campaign just to prove it. And smashing it they are. Our team of Clerics, aka the Amen, are a god's force to be reckoned with. We have already finished both Act 1 and 2 in the campaign, and we have absolutely demolished the Absolutists. If you want to see how that went, I'll leave links to the videos in the description below. Act 3 is freaking massive. So let's not dawdle, grab yourself some popcorn, because the Amen have done a lot. To continue where we left off, the Amen made camp just outside of Baldur's Gate to spend a peaceful night under the stars. Or so we thought. During the night, we were attacked by some Githyanki who appeared out of a strange portal. The Protector in our mind implored us to run through the portal. We managed to kill a few of the Githyanki and rush through the portal. We fought our way down to where we found a Mind Flayer who claimed to be the voice in our heads. We believed him and fought by his side. We eventually beat the Githyanki, but afterwards we spoke to the Illithid, who turned out to be the Guardian who was in our dreams and that he had free will. He was once an adventurer like us and became a Mind Flayer. His goal was to destroy the Absolute, and he needed our help, and had to change his form in order to trick us into believing him. He offered Tyr the ability to upgrade his Illithid powers and become half Illithid. Now, I already knew how good this was because I did this in my previous run, but I wanted to leave it up to chance. So I decided that I would do a dice roll to see if he would become part Illithid. So I was going to roll a d20 dice, and if it was going to be 11 to 20, it was going to be a no. And 1 to 10, it was going to be yes. And well, we got a 2. So Tyr became part Illithid.
Veritable feast.
Which I'm kind of pleased about because the ability to fly is freaking fun. Afterwards, I decided to see if anybody else in the party would be keen to go part Illithid. Now, I wasn't going to force it on them. It was still up to chance because we had individual dice rolls to do. However, we rolled some pretty amazing dice and everyone became part Illithid. So this was going to be awesome. I then upgraded Tyr to have the Displacer ability as I hadn't used it before and I was keen to see how it would work. Now that everyone was part Illithid, it was time to march onto Baldur's Gate and confront the Absolute and Elder Brain. After arriving in Rivington, we were confronted by Yenna, who was saying that she had lost her mother. Now, I'm not 100% too sure what she actually wants or what side quest lines up with her, what her whole deal is. And from my previous playthrough, I was pretty suspect of her being Oren, so I said she couldn't join our camp. We continued on and found the line to the Circus of Last Days. After convincing the doorman and his ghoul to let us in, we saw all there was to see, and even got ripped off by a djinn.
You dare speak to me as if we were equals? You are a scrap of food in my teeth.
We spoke to Zenthino, who did a love test on Tyr and Karlach, which Tyr completely aced.
You know me, don't you? It's wild.
However, it turned out that Zenthino was actually Oren, who had something to say about Tyr being related to her. We then watched Dribbles the Clown's act, who told some pretty average jokes.
Buddy the dog is my very best friend. Do you know why? Why? Because with him, anything is possible.
He then asked Tyr up on stage, so we got to see a weird cutscene of Dribbles talking to a pole in empty space. This was a pretty good magic trick. Dribbles then revealed himself to be an absolutist and attacked us.
Raise the absolute.
A few others joined in the ambush, and throughout the fight they revealed themselves to be doppelgangers. We decided it was probably time for us to leave the circus, as it was kind of spoiled for everyone. Nobody wants a circus where, people get murdered. So we decided to continue on, and we found a shop where we were going to sell a lot of junk. We went back to camp to fetch our items, and Yenna was in there for some reason.
Hi, it's me.
So I told her to leave again. We spoke to Gandril, who was a member of the Gurs, and we also spoke to Ulma, who asked us to help slay the vampire Cazador and rescue their children. So we agreed to help. We continued to the Temple of Ilmater and found the father had been killed by someone. However, investigator Valeria claimed it was a refugee that killed him.
Case closed, Sister Yanis.
We kind of thought something didn't seem right. So we spoke to the father's body and confirmed that he was actually murdered by a dwarf dressed in red, and he was trying to protect the refugees. This also had something to do with secret cellars and passages underneath the church. After collecting some more evidence, we went down into the cellars. We dug around a bit and found a secret buttons which revealed a secret door behind the altar. Inside there were some suspicious types who were arranging body parts in a weird pattern. Turns out they were also doppelgangers and were involved in the murder of the father, and had a lot to do with the red dwarf. After this fight we turned level 10, which to be honest is a pretty boring level, except for getting divine intervention. Gotta save that for a rainy day. After looting this cave for all the food that we could find, we continued on. We went back to camp to rest up, and Yenna was once again in our camp, and I told her to leave once again. That night, this giant blue lady came to speak to us and wanted us to kill Prince Orpheus.
Who am I?
Although this is what Lae'zel wanted to do, we weren't going to do that. It was now time to try and get into Baldur's Gate. Last time I played, I took a more indirect approach. So this time I wanted to be a little bit more direct. Now I thought they were going to take us straight to Gortash, however they locked us up instead.
Your peaceful surrender has been noted.
Luckily there was a talking skull in the cell with us, who said he would get us out if we answered some riddles. So with Tyr's cunning, we answered the riddles all correctly. However, that's where his cunning ended. Only Tyr was teleported out of the cell, and he's not a very sneaky cleric, and there was a guard who was just about to walk down the hall. Tried to hide Tyr as best I could. I even panicked and picked up everything that was in the chest, which made him encumbered, so he pretty much had no chance of getting away, and the guards spotted him. This obviously initiated combat, with everybody else still locked in the cell. However, luckily because I picked up everything from the chest, the lockpicks were still transferable through everyone's shared inventory, so everybody else was able to lockpick their way out. The only problem is that Tyr had everybody's weapons with him, so we had to waste a couple of turns on transferring all the weapons into everyone's inventories. Now the fight wasn't too hard, however there was this one mage who kept using counterspell on us, making using our spells a little bit annoying. After we defeated the guards, we rescued Floric and convinced her to not give up hope. We guided her out of the prison where nobody really noticed that just escaped, and we also received an invitation to Gortash's inauguration, which was also strange considering we were just locked up. So we went upstairs and confronted Gortash in the main hall, who revealed to us that Tyr was in fact a child of Bar, and was the one who originally came up with the absolutist plot, and worked along with Gortash until Orin messed him up. He also told us that there was a doppelganger in our camp. Now, we weren't going to survive a fight with Gortash right now, so we agreed to help him kill Orin and continued to witness his inauguration.
For Gortash, the council appoints you Archduke of Baldur's Gate.
Afterwards, Mizora told us that Will's father had been taken away and imprisoned, although she wasn't going to tell him unless there was a deal involved.
And to think, there's no way to save him. Or is there?
We long rested and found that Yenna was once again in our camp. I once again asked her to leave. I still think she may be the doppelganger, but I did check every other camp member just to be sure, but honestly I can't tell who the doppelganger. The next day we continued to explore Worm's Rock and the bridge. We went to Dantilon's dancing axe and sold some gear, then followed up on Jaheira's request to meet the other harpers. When we met with the harpers, we noticed something was strange with the lead harper, and after doing some mind reading, we found that they were imposters.
Me. Study me. This harper's face bores me.
We attacked and made quick work of them and found out they were all doppelgangers, and that the harpers had been compromised.
Thank the gods. You're the first friendly face I've seen in days.
We then went to Sharessa's Caress to show Investigator Valeria more evidence on the case of the murdered father, but they wanted more solid evidence. So we went across the street to Frego's board house to investigate the Red Dwarf some more, and get some more evidence. And then we ran into some very flirty vampires, who invited us to a party.
Hello, beautiful. I didn't see you there.
Anyway, we found the Red Dwarf's secret room and found some solid evidence that he had been killing in the name of Baal. We then took the evidence to Valeria, who tells us to find Devella and help her with the case. It's now time for us to make our way to Baldur's Gate. Once we were in Baldur's Gate, we had to sort out our lodging. We rented a room in Elfsong Tavern and found out about the murder that occurred upstairs. We met with Devella, and after we told her what we found in the Church of Ilmater, she asked us to help investigate the murders further, which we agreed to. We then went into our room and found that Yenna yet again was in our camp. We told her to leave, yet again. We then informed Jaheira about the doppelgangers and the harpers. She then told us about Minsk and asked us to help find him. She suggested that we speak to Nine Fingers for more information. We went downstairs and warned the chef about the murderer trying to get him, and then continued down to the cellar to clear out the rats and find the Emperor's hideout. The rats were pretty simple. Using Spark Growth, we stood around and, pretty much let them kill themselves. However, when we ventured further into the hideout, we stumbled upon a Githyanki, and this was a tough fight. To start things off, I used Gale to get a good opening fireball and do some good initial damage, and luckily we were able to start the fight with only 2 of the Gith noticing the fireball, so we were able to get some damage into them before the remainder of the group joined the fight. Using Flame Wall and Stone Wall, I created a choke point that would damage the fighters as they came closer. However, I stupidly summoned the Flaming Ball, which cancelled Gale's Firewall. Then I proceeded to make the same mistake with Tyr cancelling his Stone Walls to summon a Vine. Dumb. On our next round, one of the Gith had gotten into Karlach's face, so she squared off against them along with the spirit weapons. Using Tyr's Displacer Form and Will's AoE spells, we managed to cull the numbers down quite significantly. After the Inquisitor was dead, only 3 remained. We were on the ropes, but everyone used Healing Word, and we got Gale away from the fight so he could survive at least 1 round. Then we got in and finished them all off. After we looted and investigated the area, we continued through to a path that led to the sewers, where we ran into Lae'zel, who had just gotten away from Oren, or so we thought. We soon found out that Lae'zel was in fact Oren trying to trick us. She asked us to betray Gortash and then duel her to the death. That night when we rested, we were greeted by Mizora, who offered Will information on the whereabouts of his father, provided that Will signs the contract with her again. Will agrees, and Mizora tells us that Gortash has Will's father in the underwater prison.
Do it then. Claim my soul for Zariel. Keep my father safe.
When we slept that night, we awoke to the company of a very suggesting emperor. He was a little bit too keen on Tyr, so Tyr had to reject him.
Sorry. You're right. Now's not the time. Forget I said anything. Let's move on to more important things.
I didn't really feel that bad about this rejection. Now that we had finished off the business with the Emperor, we set out to the streets once more and found our way to the wine festival, where we found the wine had been poisoned by none other than the red dwarf we were hunting. We called him out and he said his doppelgangers after us, and then he ran away, coward. After beating them, we ventured further into the city and ran into Aradin again, who had just been kicked out of Sorcerer's Sundries. We told him about Night Song, but refused to let him take her, so he threatened to capture her, although I'd like to see him try, so he could take her to Lorroakan for a reward. We went inside to try and find information about the crown, but also to see what Lorroakan wanted with the Night Song. We spoke to the librarian, who mentioned there were some tomes that had the information locked away somewhere, so we figured we should speak to Lorroakan and try and work out a deal. We made our way to him and found out his intention was to use Night Song to make himself immortal, just as Ketheric Thrawn had done. Now, we weren't going to just let this happen, which he wasn't too happy about, so he attacked us.
Then again, perhaps word of your agonizing death will draw your little friend to me.
This fight was a little tricky because he had a group of elemental myrmidons to fight by his side. He even took Gale, Karlach, and Tyr out, but he was no match for Will's AoE spells and mass healing word. We killed Lorroakan and gotten down to the last of his followers. However, it fell off the map, so we had to fly down to the lower level and finish it off. Afterwards, we continued to explore the tower and found a secret area where all the treasure was stored. We managed our way through all the traps that were in place and found a lot of cool loot. And we also found the book that had the information we needed for the crown.
Annals of Karsus.
We gave the book to Gale, who spoke of using the crown to become a god himself, but we told him to chill out.
You're right. There aren't many wizards who'd care to be mentioned in the same breath as him. Or his folly. Now
that we'd finished here, it was time to leave. We went to the Stormshore Tabernacle to buy some revival gauntlets for Tyr, and found the statue of Mystra was glowing. Gale realized that this was a message that Mystra wanted to speak with him. So he opened himself up to Mystra and disappeared to speak with her in private. She revealed to him that the magic in his chest was a new version of the weave, which was created by Karsus when he failed to become a god. And it was basically a black hole of magic.
It was the Karsite weave.
Mystra promised to cure Gale of it if he brings her the crown, which we all agreed we would do. We then continued on the trail of the Red Dwarf, and went into the Facemaker's boutique, where we found the Red Dwarf had paralyzed his next target and was about to kill him. The Vela was there too and was also paralyzed. However, we couldn't really save her in time. We were able to kill them all pretty easily, despite the dwarf having a bajillion attacks in one turn. We rested, and the next morning Mizora wanted to speak with Tyr, so we had a chat and found that Mizora was a little bit thirsty for some Tyr, so they agreed for a secret meetup.
Smile, and I'll come to you when you put your head down to rest. I will sate your most forbidden lust.
It was now time to find Ninefingers. We continued to Ninefingers' hideout and convinced the security guard to let us in. However, I tried to leave the area again prematurely, which they weren't going to let us do, so unfortunately we had to kill them. On the body of the orc, we found this ring, which led us into the secret hideout. Before we entered, I thought it would be best to long rest. Mizora was waiting for Tyr, and well, things got hotter than the hells themselves. The next morning, eyebrows were raised, especially Will's.
Countless souls walk these plains, countless ways to find pleasure, and out of all of them, you chose her.
Poor Will, rejected for the devil that owns his soul. Anyway, after entering the hideout, we spoke to Ninefingers with Jaheira. Ninefingers gave us some information on Minsk, but also said that he'd been converted by the Absolute and was now the Stone Lord. Ninefingers said she was going to hunt him down and kill him, so we decided we had to get to him first. We spoke to a drunk dwarf and found out that Minsk was planning a heist on the bank, so there was where we were headed. In order to get through the Minsk, I thought it'd be best to bring Jaheira with us. So I respec'd her into a knowledge domain cleric and replaced her with Karlach. Unfortunately, I didn't have much good equipment left, as I had sold most of it throughout the travels. So I gave her some random armor I had in storage, plus bought a flail and shield for her to use. We also discovered something in my inventory which gave us all enough experience to push us to level 11, which gave us access to level 4 spells. I gave Will Blade Wall, Gale Create Undead, Karlach Hero's Feast, and Tyr Planar Ally. We entered the bank and told them something bad was going to happen in the vault, so they let us down. We continued through and completed the puzzle and confronted Minsk, only to find another Jaheira had him fooled. They quickly fled, leaving Baal cultists behind for us to fight. The armed men and women made quick work for the Baldurs, and we found that Minsk and the fake Jaheira had made for the sewers. We raided a couple of the vaults and found some pretty cool items and then long rested. That night some vampires had come from Astarion, but we told them that we couldn't have him with our fist, and they left. The next day we went to the sewers in pursuit of Minsk. We defeated the cultists and their murder of crows who were guarding the entrance and charged through to the main gate to confront Minsk. This was a really fun fight. Tyr summoned a Jinn and Gale summoned a mummy before we entered the fight, and along with spirit weapons we had a massive group of allies with us. Tyr used his Displacer Beast form to displace the enemies and really mess them up. And I also got Jaheira to use Dominate Person on Minsk so he would fight for us. Then got her to use Sanctuary, so it would be hard for the enemy to attack her and break the concentration. With all the extra helpers we managed to dominate them. However, I did unfortunately let the traitor get away. Towards the end of the fight we switched our weapons from kill to stun and knocked Minsk out. We convinced the Emperor to protect Minsk from the Elder Brain, and Minsk was finally himself again. Well, once he got his hamster back, that is. Now before we continue on, if you've enjoyed this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos by me, subscribe to the channel. Now that we had rescued Minsk, we went back to Nine Fingers' hideout to find the Zentarium traitor was there, who had been planning to ambush Nine Fingers. Unfortunately, we didn't stop her from giving the signal, so we had to help Nine Fingers defend the hideout, which is a pretty trivial fight. Once we succeeded, we secured Nine Fingers as an ally for the final battle. Now that the Nine Fingers and Minsk business was taken care of, we decided to confront Cazador. For this, I thought it'd be best to take Astarion with us in place of Karlach, so I made him a Trickery Domain Cleric. Luckily, I had some armor and greatsword for him to use that I found in the bank. We waltzed into Cazador's manor, and after beating the skeleton, we got the signet ring that allowed us entry into the main hall, where we were confronted by all manner of beasts. I thought this was a vampire lair. Anyway, after killing all of them, we proceeded down to the lower levels. We spoke to the skull who gave us the scroll and with all the information about the ritual Cazador was planning to use. With that information, it was time to fight Cazador. However, I wasn't going to bring Astarion with me. If you take Astarion, he just gets captured and you have to kill Cazador with a time limit, so there's no point bringing Astarion into the main fight. Before the fight, ensured everyone summoned planar allies and had them all into the fight with us, obviously without Astarion.
I am the immortal Cazador, and you will be mine!
Now, it was a tough fight against Cazador, but with all our extra allies and AoE spells, we managed to defeat Cazador pretty easily. We then invited Astarion down to finish Cazador off. However, we didn't properly convince Astarion not to go through with the ritual. So after he killed Cazador, he destroyed the Cazador staff, which meant we couldn't release the vampires, and Astarion left.
I'm done with this. And I'm done with you.
Next, it was time to do something about Gortash and the Steel Watch. So we made our way over to the docks. We found Volo, who was about to be blown up by some Absolutists, so we rescued him, which leveled us up to level 12. Level 12 gave us our last feat. I gave Tyr Shieldmaster, Gale Spell Sniper, Will and Karlach both got Warcaster. Next we decided to break into Gortash's Steel Watch factory. Unfortunately, I used up all my lockpicks trying to get in, so we had to try and find other methods. Luckily, there was a lot of explosives on the cart nearby. We moved the barrels over one by one, and the Steel Watch quickly came to investigate, so we had to fight and demolish it. We continued on and killed the other Steel Watch and waltzed into the factory, where we convinced the followers of Bane that we were there to relieve them.
The relief crew was due hours past. Your tardiness will be noted, dread brother.
We then went further into the back office and spoke to Tubin, who told us that he and the other Gondians could help us destroy the Steel Watch if we rescued their family in the underwater prison, which we're going to go to anyway. So that's where we headed next, although I found that we couldn't get to the factory due to us not having lockpicks and the doors being indestructible. So we had to find another way in. Luckily, there is an entrance located through the sewers up this route. Once inside, we found the dwarf who was the captain of the submarine, and we convinced him to take us down. On our way down, Gortash wasn't pleased with us and threatened to activate his countermeasures in the underwater prison. We pressed on, determined to save everyone. When we got there, Gortash had set explosives off, which caused the place to begin to flood. So we had a limited time to rescue everyone, which included Will's dad. Before we started, I had everyone who could summon a planar ally and entered. Now, I have to be honest here, this was one of the only times I actually saved scummed in this playthrough. On my first attempt of doing this, I managed to save everyone but one Gondian, which I wasn't at all pleased about. So I tried a couple more times to save that one Gondian. I figured, considering like that one person wasn't going to affect the storyline because I saved everyone major anyway, it was not that big a deal to save scum it. Each other attempt I tried One or two people unfortunately got killed, or something bugged out and someone got stuck. But eventually we managed it, and this is how we did it. At the start, I had everyone use potions to speed, and use dash and fly to get everyone around the map. I used our summons to deal with the enemies at the immediate entry. I had Will go and save his father, Karlach and Gal go and fly off to save the Gondians in the mass holding cells and fight the 2 enemies there. Tyr went to save the 2 being tortured along with Omnium, and I had also summoned a Mage Hand to release the Gondians in the central hall. On the second round, Will, Karlach and Gal had killed their enemies, leaving them free to release the prisoners, also allowing Karlach to cast Sanctuary on herself to fly and collect the treasure. Now there is a little bit of a glitch here that allows you to fly over walls and into the cells with the treasures in it, so keep that in mind. Tyr was able to save the Gondians and Omelium. After that, everyone was pretty much free to escape. I used the summons to hold back the spawning enemies and shut the doors on the other side to prevent anyone coming through the treasure side. And after all that, we managed to rescue everyone and get all the treasure. Afterwards, we witnessed Will and his father reunite, and everything was explained. The Duke forgave his son for everything and told us about the dragon sleeping underneath Worm's Rock. Now that we'd saved the Gondians' families, we can now help the Gondians in the Steel Watch factory and destroy it, disabling the Steel Watch. We entered the building, and as soon as we did, the Gondians started attacking. We summoned our planar allies and joined the battle. Everyone was grouped together, so our AoE spells made huge impact. We also used Protect from Death on Tubin in order to secure his help in taking out the Steel Watch. Along with everyone's help, we dealt with these guys pretty easily. Next we went inside with Tubin, having to fight some more of Gortash's followers and more of the Steel Watch. With our large array of AoE spells, Healing Word, plus planar allies, spirit weapons, Guardians of Faith, and all the other helpers, we had more than enough help to defeat the enemy pretty easily. Now we had to go deeper into the factory and destroy the Steel Watch. And in order to do that, we had to destroy the Steel Titan. At first, I was a little bit worried as we were down a few spell slots, but luckily Tyr had a few left, so I made him a dedicated healer. Had him cast Sanctuary and Beacon of Hope on himself, giving his spells maximum healing. We focused on taking out the Hellfire Watchers first, and after dealing with them, the Titan was pretty easy to finish off. Now, the Steel Watch seems pretty intimidating, but all you need to do is take down 3/4 of their health before they start to self-destruct, so it's not too bad. Once we destroyed the Titan, Tuba did his thing and blew up the factory, which meant no more Steel Watch. So now it was time to go to Gortash. But on the way to Worm's Rock, I wanted to stop at Devil's Feet and see what items they had. Here we found out from Helsik that her and Tyr used to work with each other, and she used to create portals into the Hells for us. And in fact, this is how we stole the Crown of Karsus. I thought this was interesting, and asked if she could get us into the House of Hope. Now originally she was going to charge us 20k gold for this. Yeah, we couldn't really afford that. So she agreed to give us a portal there, provided we steal some special gauntlets for her. She gave us the ingredients for the portal, and after we completed the ritual, we teleported to Avernus, into the House of Hope. When we first entered, we were greeted by the projection of a halfling named Hope. Was this her house? Who was apparently imprisoned in the House of Hope. Wait a sec. And wanted us to help her escape, although she did seem a little bit loony. We agreed to help her, but we would need to steal the Orphic Hammer to do so. Hope disguised us all as commoners, and we explored the halls of the House of Hope. We spoke to a few of the Trap Souls, but didn't really get much information out of them. I then found this gem on the wall, and after a few failed attempts of opening it, we managed to get into the secret treasury behind the wall, which contained some pretty epic items. We also found this door to Raphael's chambers, but there was clearly a barrier that would stop us from entering. So we looked around and found this back way in. Luckily, we could fly and easily find a way through the back window. When inside, we saw the sleeping Cambion. Luckily, we had a spell Planar Binding, which allowed us to control the Cambion. We then explored some more and found this hidden button. Unfortunately, when we pressed it, a wave of imps descended on us. Fighting the imps was annoying because they kept flinging us around. Luckily, we could use our AoE spells to wipe them out. However, we were now left to deal with a Cambion, who kept turning invisible every time we hurt him. The fight took longer than we would have liked. After we beat him, we found some special bath taps that healed us like a long rest, which was perfect. We looted the Cambion and found a safe key, and opened the secret safe the button revealed. Inside, we found Raphael's notes, which also included his secret password to give us access to the hammer. After looting his room some more, we left the secret room and made our way to the archive, where the loot was being held. We spoke to the archivist and convinced him that we were there to inspect the magical items. I figured that now was a good time to steal the loot we needed. Unfortunately, I didn't notice the pressure pads the treasure was on in time, and we set off the alarm. Things were about to go down.
You have what you wanted, but you cannot leave lest all hells break loose.
When we left, flaming balls had spawned in the hallways, and all the trap souls had become hostile. We quickly ran through the hallways, only fighting when necessary, and found the secret hole in the ground near the shortcut to Raphael's room. This hole in the ground led to Hope's prison, where she was chained up with 2 spectators and a bunch of imps guarding her. Now this was a tricky fight, as I had to position our team so the imps wouldn't knock anyone off the edge. Although Will was killed, we managed to kill the 2 spectators pretty well with Gale's AoE spells. Honestly, Destructive Wave is a S tier spell. Despite my best efforts though, Gale was blown off the edge of the map. After we killed the second spectator, we finished off the imps and released Hope from her chain.
I never thought I would be believed I could be.
She offered to help us escape, but she was not sure we're going to make it out alive, now that Raphael was coming for us.
That's the hopeful version, of course. The likely version is that we are the messes and he is the chopper. Onwards!
After leaving, I finished off all the enemies in the hallways, then went to the magic taps of Long Rest one last time. Before making our way to the exit, I had everyone summon a Jinn planar ally, as I found them to be the most useful in this area. I thought we might have had a chance to escape, but I was wrong, and Raphael met us at the door. But we weren't going to grovel at his knees. We were the Almen, holy clerics destined to smite the devils from existence. Raphael was a strong devil, but we shall prevail. Raphael had a lot of help. A half dozen Cambions, his assistant Corilla, and the devil we'd already slain once before, Yuga. This was a very tough fight, mainly because the sheer numbers of strong enemies we had to fight. Though the Jinns were a great help in this fight because of their Burp Spell and Shockwave, which were great AoE spells. For the start of this fight, I wanted Tyr to be the primary healer, so I cast Sanctuary on himself to keep him safe, while everyone else did their best to fight the Cambions. Unfortunately, I made a dumb mistake and wasted Karlach's Divine Intervention casting the Radiant damage version, forgetting that Raphael's protection would reflect all the damage on her. Although it might have done a good chunk of damage to everyone, it did get her knocked down. On Tyr's next turn, I cast Beacon of, which allowed all his healing spells to have mass effect, while he was also protected by Sanctuary. This would ensure he would stay alive. We managed to work down the Cambions mainly with Will's Destructive Wave, Shatter, and Cold Lightning. Gale had a very hard time staying alive as Yuga and Raphael kept focusing him, keeping him dead. Although this did allow the rest of the team to fight without taking huge amounts of damage. Eventually I was able to kill most of the Cambions and imps, leaving Yuga alive. This is when I realized the importance of the 4 pillars in the edge. I had Karlach and the Jinn go and destroy them. The Jinn were perfect for this as they could use Shockwave and significantly damage them, and then use Teleport to the next one. Hope was also super handy with her healing spells. I managed to get Gale alive and have a turn before getting killed again to allow him to cast Sanctuary on himself and be protected. Gale finally finished off Yuga with Destructive Wave, leaving Raphael alone, though he still had pretty much full health. Things were not looking very good, and we were low on spell slots, and half the party had less than half health. Hope was unfortunately killed, leaving us up Shit's Creek. I even had Karlach and Tyr turn into Displacers to teleport Raphael around to try and do as much damage as we could. However, this wasn't enough. Raphael killed Gale, Will, and Tyr, leaving Karlach on her own. And Raphael still had more than half his HP left. Although, something miraculous happened. Karlach still was able to use her Divine Intervention. I'm not sure why, but maybe the gods really wanted Raphael dead. So she used it and brought everyone back to full health and full spell slots. Raphael was screwed. Everyone summoned a new group of Jinns, Spirit Weapons, Guardians of Faith, and we cornered the devil and smited him down with everything we could throw at him. And with one last cast of Destructive Wave, Raphael was done. We looted his corpse and got some fantastic armor for Tyr. With that taken care of, we left Avernus, leaving a trail of devil death and destruction in our wake. I didn't intend on giving the gloves to Helsik, so I kept it on Karlach and we left to finally confront Gortash. When we got to Worm's Rock, we fought the annoying Flaming Fist who manned the gates at the front door, then decided to take the long way around Gortash's tower to avoid Gortash's men in the main hall. We then walked in and confronted Gortash. After slaying a devil, this would be an easy fight, right?
You can't escape me! Wherever you go, I'll find you. Wherever you run, there I'll be!
With a string of unfortunate rolls, we all got blown up in his first attack. We were left pretty much all dead, and Gortash and his men demolished us. So again, we confronted Gortash. This time, I was mentally prepared. This time I split everyone up as early as possible to ensure we didn't get blown up right away. Bill was deleted by Gortash in the first turn, but luckily it was only Will. I had Tyr use Sanctuary of Hope, which is what I will now call Beacon of Hope combined with Sanctuary, so that he could keep everyone healed. I focused on killing Gortash's followers with Will and Gale doing their best with AoE damage to everyone. Karlach focused on trying to wither down Gortash. We eventually killed Gortash's followers, allowing everyone to bear down on Gortash himself. And with Tyr being dedicated healer, Gortash didn't stand a chance. We all surrounded him and beat him to a pulp. We had just killed Gortash, but Karlach was still sad. She realized that she was still probably going to die. We gave her some time and long rested. We came back and spoke to her, and she was in high spirits despite everything, and was keen to keep adventuring. It was now time to awaken the dragon in Worm's Rock. We went into the prison, and after I figured out the puzzle, we went into the dragon way. We continued further in, and were tasked with solving a selection of puzzles to gain us entrance into the chamber where the answer was. I attempted to work out the first puzzle here with the paintings, but I couldn't really work it out, so I figured I'd come back to it. I had a look into the next room with the flying books, and I couldn't catch them, and none of the other books really held any information on answers on who I needed to choose out of the 3 potential betrayers. So we continued to move on. And then the next one was a game of chess. Surely this would be easy. However, despite Gale's help, I stuffed up the moves and we failed the test completely, spawning groups of undead for us to fight. Luckily, we were clerics, and the undead were no match for us. After defeating the skellies, we were still able to gain access to the Dragon Slayer, so I guess slaying all the skellies still proves us worthy of Enso's help. As we entered the tomb, we found out the dragon was dead, and just a pile of bone. As we neared, its spirit came to life and spoke to Tyr, although it wasn't actually speaking to Tyr, it was speaking to the Emperor, as if he knew him. The Emperor appeared, and the dragon called the Emperor Baldurs.
Your presence has stirred me, as it ever did.
Which means that the Emperor was Baldurs, the very person who founded Baldur's Gate. We found out that the Emperor betrayed the dragon, and now the dragon wanted us dead. The dragon's bones rose to life, and we had a huge fight on our hands. I was not prepared for this fight at all. We had no spell slots, we were grouped very close together, and we did not last very long. This was one of the hardest fights I've had to fight so far. My next attempt, I had long rested and had everyone spawn our helpers. However, I didn't ungroup us before the fight, which meant the dragon could wipe us out again with his huge AoE spells. The biggest issue was a dragon could use an attack of opportunity, casting his lightning breath once per turn if someone attacked him, making it very hard. So the next time, I spawned a group of Jinn to help us and ensure everyone had protection from energy lightning casts. I started the fight ensuring everyone was split up. He could only damage one of us at the time. I ensured that everyone kept protection of energy active. We were able to kill his Myrmidon helpers and slowly whittle his health down with our spells. I stopped using healing word on everyone and prioritized using potions on everyone who needed healing. That way we could keep our spell slots active. We had a steady strategy at this point, slowly working him down until we reached the point that he started charging his energy. When this happened, I ensured everyone hid in the bottom room at the bottom of the map or at the top of the stairs behind the entrance, which negated any damage. I also found that the Jinn were immune to lightning damage, so I ensured that they would teleport really close to the dragon, out of range of everyone else, and draw out the attack of opportunity so they could tank the first attack. Eventually, we defeated the dragon, which was extremely satisfying. Afterwards, we found some great loot, an awesome sword and helm for Cleric to use. After leaving the rock, it was time to take on Orin. We got past the skeleton guard and spoke to Sevarok, who explained to us that Tyr was once the very best of the Baal spawns, and Baal's favourite child. Yet we were blind to Orin's uprising, who betrayed us and overthrew us, scrambling our mind at the same time. We proved ourselves to be an unholy assassin of Baal, and Sevarok led us into the ritual room, where Valeria was chained up to be slain. But we chose not to slay Valeria, and decided to attack Sevarok instead. Sevarok is a pain because he had so much protection buffs and self-heals, but it wasn't too hard. Us holy clerics wouldn't be defeated so easily. We received the Amulet of Baal and continued into the sewers to the Baal Temple. We made our way to the Baal Temple and entered the ritual grounds where the Baal followers are tested. Luckily, we were able to thwart the ambush set up for us and kill the Baalists at the top of the rock by flying to them and got into the face of the Baalist spirit that was testing us. Once we killed him, we were free to confront Orin. We long rested and made our way to Orin, where Celaturus Fel was waiting to let us into the temple. We confronted Orin and convinced her not to kill Lae'zel, and now it was time for our one-on-one duel with Orin. And let's just say, Tyr is truly the strongest child of Baal. Tyr had his Jinn and spirit weapon to help him. He also had a ring that healed him at the start of each turn, which also triggered Blade Ward to increase his defenses. With the Guardian of Faith, Spirit Guardians, Tyr's never-ending health, he never went below 94 HP, and made Orin look like a joke. After the fight, Baal wanted to speak directly with Tyr, and sacrificed Celaturus Fel to do so. He offered Tyr to become his new chosen, but Tyr was no longer influenced by Baal, and he refused. Baal was not happy about this and took his blood back from Tyr, which unfortunately killed him.
Make another who is worthy.
Now, I legit thought this would be the end of Tyr, but thankfully Withers had other plans. He revived Tyr, as he had challenged Baal and became a champion. This meant that Tyr had defeated the Dark Urge and was a free man.
So rise, challenger of gods, and prepare for battle once more.
Now that was taken care of, we had the 3 crystals, and it was finally time to confront the Elder Brain. We rested, then set out on our final mission. We entered the sewers and travelled forth to the underground docks. We fought and killed the swarm of mine rats, rested one last time, and set out. Our boat was destroyed, and once we landed, we pressed on, fought the group of intellect of ours, then continued to confront the Brain. Unfortunately, we couldn't control the Brain despite a nat 20 on the final roll. The Emperor rescued us and took us into the prison. Turns out the Brain had planned everything that had happened. Having us gather the stones made the Crown's grip on it weak enough that the Brain overcame it and became the Nether Brain. We agreed to give the Emperor the stones and allow him to assimilate the Prince Orpheus. Then we proceeded on. The Netherbrain was released, and Baldur's Gate was on the brink of destruction. Thankfully, all of our friends that we'd made along the way had gathered, ready to lend us their strength. We stepped out as warriors of light, prepared to the teeth to smite the brain out of existence. When we entered the castle grounds, I tried to sneak in around the corner, but we were spotted, so I quickly flew my party up to the battlements. This was a great area to fight, as the enemies had to go through multiple choke points to get to it. Using flame walls, spike growth, and insect plague, we managed to cull a lot of the weaker close-range enemies that tried to get to us. With our planar allies plus the Emperor to help us, we worked our way through the remaining enemies. Next, we had to climb the tower to the Netherbrain. Now, this was quite annoying, as the enemies got us stuck on the lower level with no movement, so a few of us got hit by the cannons. Eventually, I managed to get everyone on top of things, fly up and take out the enemies, and we eventually reached the door, where we had our last chance to prepare to fight the brain. I used potions of angelic healing to get everyone fully restored before the fight, and it was finally time to fight the brain. When we reached the top, the brain spawned its own group of soldiers, plus the red dragon, but luckily I had my own army to summon. On our first 2 rounds, I summoned everyone we had access to. Cleric's cohort, Nine Fingers Assassins, the Owlbear Cub, Zevlor and his Hell Riders, Mizora, Nightsong, the Duke's Flaming Fists, Almathagir, and the Watch. Along with our summons and the spirit weapons, we waged war against the dragon, tentacles, and the brain's champions. Although they really had it out for Karlach and Gal at one point. We did take too long in this fight, going past the 5 turns before reinforcements came, but it made no matter. We got the Emperor up onto the ledge to start channeling to the crown, and managed to get the party up to protect him. Everyone else dealt with the dragon and the enemies that kept spawning. Once the portal was open, pretty much everyone was dead, and our army had pretty much nothing else to do but to sit around on their hands. The Armen entered the portal and started wailing on the brain. Karlach used the spell scroll of Artistry of War, which had been saving, and Karlach finished off the brain.
Impossible. Pain. Fear. Terror. Reconsider. Assess. Implore.
We allowed the Emperor to command the brain to self-destruct and destroy all the tadpoles, causing it to crash into the ocean, finally defeating the brain. We had done it. The Armen had succeeded in saving Baldur's Gate and restoring balance to the world. Everyone is keen to celebrate and enjoy their victory. However, the Emperor thought it might be best for him to leave. Lae'zel flew off on her dragon, as if she did anything in this campaign. Karlach, however, was beginning to die, but we weren't going to let that happen. Bill suggested that she go to Avernus with him.
Karlach, you're coming with me. Back to Avernus.
Tyr agreed, but he wasn't going to go with them. With Baldur's Gate saved, Tyr decided to right the wrongs of his past and help rebuild the city.
For the first time, you feel alone. Calm. You breathe.
And that, everyone, is the end of my Baldur's Gate 3 Cleric. And what an experience has it been. The Clerics have been an amazing team to wield. And although they have their challenges, I feel we met the challenges and overcame them without too much difficulty. The Clerics, with their ability to heal, summon allies, use spells like Spirit Guardian, Sanctuary, Mass Healing Word, and gain access to a wide array of spells specific to their domain like Destructive Wave and Wall of Fire, all while being able to equip medium to heavy armor depending on your class, makes them an absolute force to be reckoned with. This has been a great playthrough, and I have thoroughly enjoyed making this series for you. I hope you have all enjoyed it, and I would like to take this time to say thank you for watching. This is my first attempt at a series this large, and I'm so glad to see that so many of you have enjoyed it. If you haven't already, like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing more videos like this in the future, so I look forward to seeing you there. If you have any suggestions for types of runs that you'd like to see me do in the future, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you everyone, and until next time.